Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. We got a returning guest on the line, somebody who is an authority in the space of economics and health in many ways. He's just somebody who's done a lot of research. Maybe he wouldn't call himself that, but I know when you do a lot of research, you come across a lot of things. You connect a lot of dots, and you start to really understand things. And I have none other than the amazing G Edward Griffin on the line with us tonight. You know him from The Creature of Jekyll Island, The World Without Cancer, The Discovery of Noah's Ark, Moles in High Places, The Open Gates of Troy. The list goes on and on. He's got a number of websites, but I spotlight redpilluniversity.org if you want more information on G Edward Griffin. But without any further ado, G Edward Griffin, thanks for coming on Crush the Street with me today.
Well, thanks, Kenneth, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Well, the Fed is commenting right now. They're talking about the gold standard. They're talking about, is gold good for the economy? Is it not? The role of the Fed. And I know there's no better person to have on the line now than you to discuss, what is going on right now in regards to this. I know Chairman Jerome Powell said that every other country abandoned the gold standard because the goal of the Fed would be to stabilize gold and not what they do now, which is unemployment and stable prices. Those would get put on the back burner if you have a gold standard, and now they got to deal with the gold price, not the other two mandates. So, what are your thoughts on this, especially as the Fed is caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to deal with what to do with the economy and interest rates here in 2019?
Well, it's a tough question, not in the sense of knowing how to answer it, Kenneth, but it's a tough question in terms of the fact that when I do answer it in total candor, it doesn't sound good. People don't like to hear it because I have, as you said, I've spent a major portion of my adult life really swimming in that pond of the Federal Reserve, and I've come to see aspects of it that are not visible at first. You have to get used to the maze after a while. But once you're used to it, you know where all the hidden doors are. You know really what the layout is. So let me cut to the chase on that. I think, first of all, anybody who takes the Fed at face value and thinks that what they say has any relationship to reality is making a big mistake. Because the Federal Reserve System, in my view, I've come to understand it, is one of the most sinister, one of the most unscrupulous organizations that you could possibly imagine. And this is a harsh thing to say. People don't want to hear it. Most people don't believe it. I certainly didn't believe it before I started on my research journey. But I came to that realization when I finally came to understand that the Federal Reserve System is not a government agency. It's not a mandate of the people. It's a private organization. It's a cartel, actually. That's a harsh reality. What? The Federal Reserve System is a cartel? You mean like the drug cartel or like a banana cartel, an oil cartel? And the answer is yes, it is. It just happens to be a banking cartel, which means that it's made up of the largest players in the field, the largest banks in the United States, formed an association like a labor union. Labor unions are, in a sense, cartels too, especially if it's a multifaceted labor union where there are many different unions within a larger union. Cartel in the dictionary is defined as a group of what apparently appear to be independent companies, private enterprise organizations, corporations, if you will, who appear to be competitors because they're all in the same field, but they've come together for the purpose of reducing or eliminating competition between them so as to enhance their prowess to enhance their position within the field, not have to compete in sense of lowering prices to attract customers, not have to compete in sense of creating a better product than their competitors, because all of those things reduce their profit margins. So they get the idea in all cartels that if we just don't have to compete, we can cooperate with each other, we can set our prices, we can set our business practices, we can set everything we want to and create kind of a monopoly over the field. And then customers will have no choice. They'll either pay, they'll accept what we offer, or they go fish because that's it. They don't have any choice. And the way they do that, of course, is always in the modern world at least, they try to make it look like it was some kind of a benevolent enterprise. They try to make it look like it was a government agency. They get the government involved so that in this case, the Federal Reserve System, they put the word federal to it for no other reason except to make it seem like a government operation when in fact it isn't. So I start off with the understanding of what this thing is. A banking cartel has, like any other cartel, has just one interest and one only, and that is to advance the best interests of the cartel itself, nothing else. But in order to successfully operate and to have the benign acceptance, if not the admiration of the public, they have to go to great lengths to do a public relations job and to make it seem that they're doing this for us. Everything they say they're doing, they have to explain it as for you folks. They have to say, well, it's to fight inflation. We raised interest rates this week because we want to fight inflation for you folks to protect the purchasing power of the dollar, as though they cared about the purchasing power of the dollar. But they want you to think that they do. Or they said, well, we reduced interest rates this month because we want to stimulate the economy and improve employment for you folks. They wouldn't go too well if they actually told the truth and said, well, we did it because we thought we could get away with it. And we thought it would enhance our position. We thought it would cover our tracks. We did it because we thought it would improve our profit margins and all of these things. And so I come at it with a rather jaundiced and I consider to be a realistic view of this thing that we're talking about. The Federal Reserve System is a corrupt system. It's something we really, in my view, I think we need to abolish it. I personally view, I'm jumping to the head of or to the end of the story here when I say this, but I believe that if we don't abolish the Federal Reserve System pretty soon, it's going to abolish America because it has completely taken grip of the economy, which means it's taken grip of the people. It owns the government because the government needs that money to operate at this continuing deficit. The government does not operate on taxes, as you probably know, it operates on debt. It borrows far more money and continually borrowing more and more and more and more and more. Never intends to pay that back. It's a game. Everybody knows they're just pretending to borrow it. They're inflating the money supply and the debt goes up, up, up. There's no way in the world they're ever going to pay that back except by completely abandoning or devaluating the money supply. That's how they intend to pay it back, by borrowing dollars and paying back pennies. And that destroys the economy. It destroys the purchasing power of the average person. The average person pays all that debt. The Federal Reserve is not going to pay that debt. The people pay that debt in terms of loss of purchasing power. So it's a scam all the way up and down. It's a form of legalized plunder. So now back to your question. With that rather jaundiced view that I have, I consider it to be a realistic view. When you ask me, well, what do we think about the Fed being concerned about the people, whether or not having a money system based on gold or silver is feasible? Can we do it? Will it help the people? Will it be possible? It's all for show. It's just complete. It's a scam. It's like, you look at this hand over here while you do a trick with this hand. And they've been doing this from the get-go. And all of the central banks of the world are exactly the same. So it's not an aberration with just the Federal Reserve. They all copy each other. Federal Reserve was the first primary one, and it copied itself after the Bank of England. I have all this history in my book. But so getting back to the simple answer to your question is that I don't listen to their words at all anymore. I look at their deeds. And so I know what their deeds are. They're not going to they're not going to back the money system with gold or silver at any meaningful level. They might, let's say, if they want to devalue the currency or switch over to an international currency backed by the International Monetary Fund or something like that, which is, I think, a very real possibility, they'll have to sell it. They have to sell it to the American people, and so they might conceivably say, well, look, we're going to back this on a sort of a basket of currencies, but to make it look good, we're also going to put some gold in there too. So people say, oh, gold, oh, well, that means it's going to be stable, but they'll put it in maybe 10% or 5% or 15% for a while. In other words, just to get people to say, oh, this is good, sign me up, I'm for it. And then 2 years later, 3 years later, they cut the percentage from, let's say, 10% to 8% or 7%. And then another year later, down to 2%. And then finally, as all of these systems are or how they work, it'll be 0% again. So it's conceivable that that might happen. But let me explain, if I may, Kenneth, why I know that the cartel will not be interested, the banking cartel. Let me rephrase it. I'll tell you why I know the large international banks will not want to back money by gold or silver. And it's a very simple business reason. It's because banks make their money by loaning money and collecting interest on it. That's the primary way they make money, is interest on loans. Well, what are they loaning? They're loaning money. Well, they can only loan what they have. So the more money they have to loan, the more interest they can make. But if their supply, if their inventory of money is limited, they come to the point where they're loaned up, as they say. This is kind of a banking term, believe it or not. We're loaned up, which means we don't have any more reserves to put into the economy in the form of loans. Therefore, it stops our interest earning process. So the only way they can break out of that is either to lower interest rates, or to raise interest rates so high that it attracts people who want to save money and earn interest on it. So they'll start putting deposits into the bank. So now the banks can loan out the money because people deposited it into the banks. But that's a laborious and tedious process, and it depends on the whims of the savers and the depositors. Banks don't like that. They like to control their inventory. They don't want to have to go out and beg for people, please, deposit some money and we'll pay you interest. They don't want to pay interest. They want to collect interest. And so they don't like this system. They want to be able to create money out of nothing, out of just raising the hand, have a board meeting. How many people are in favor of expanding the money supply this week? Oh, I'm all for that, because that means we can lend more money and we can lower the interest rate. But if it costs you nothing to create money out of nothing, you don't have to charge a lot of interest on it in order to make a profit. It's as simple as that. And so I know how this works. And so when they start talking about, should we back the money with gold or silver, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. I have to laugh because it's funny, but I have to cry because I know so many people fall for it.
Right. Wow. It's amazing how deep we can go into these topics and how nuanced they are, right? One thing I wanted to point out is, gold was kind of just, on the edge of its seat there up until the meeting. And as soon as the meeting started happening, they're talking about cutting rates, gold started moving higher, decisively. And we've seen gold move very strongly in the upwards direction since the end of May here into June. And once again, we were at $1,400 gold, and now, we've had like a $17 move in just the last couple hours here. So what is gold saying in this environment of what the Fed is doing? It's like the Fed has taken gold out of money, but it's almost like you really can't take the money out of gold in a certain way, if you will. So, in your opinion, what are we seeing gold tell us in this environment with the Fed and, the unstable circumstance we are with the economy?
That's a really good question. The answer depends on whether what we're hearing is gold speaking or the bank speaking. The gold always speaks the truth, but what we hear may not be the voice of gold. It might be something else. And by that, I mean that we say gold speaking, that means the price of gold, the free market price of gold. Is it going up or is it going down, or sideways or whatever. If that process is a result of a free market operation and millions and millions of people buying and selling without any artificial manipulation behind the scenes, without any legislation to distort the market, without maneuverings and illegal and dishonest operations by the holders, the big holders of the gold, well, then gold speaks very honestly. And if gold goes up, that tells us a lot. It tells us that the value of it tells us that the market, meaning millions and millions of people, are recognizing that the value of paper currency, national currencies, is going down. They don't want to hold that anymore in their savings. They don't want to put their savings into dollars or yen or Deutschmarks or whatever. They want to put it into gold because that is not going to change its value. It's not politically manipulated, and so, or it shouldn't be. Sometimes it is. So that's what gold speaks to us when the prices go up or down. But unfortunately, we do know that organizations like the Federal Reserve cartel and some of the bullion banks, the biggest banks, who hold and literally control the buy and sell market, can artificially, let's say, sell a huge amount very suddenly. They can just dump it on the market in order to create a dramatic effect, and the price of gold will go plummeting down because there's such a huge amount dumped onto the market all at once, wasn't anticipated, seems to be no reason for it. And so I said, if they dump it on the market, people who are buying gold can't buy enough of it. So they don't have enough money to buy it. It was all on the market. So it's, supply and demand, the price will go down. Well, the average bloke will look at the price of gold. So what is gold saying to us today? Well, gold is saying that the price is going down. That means that people don't want gold anymore. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that they artificially dumped a huge truckload or trainload of gold on the market all at once, and the market couldn't absorb it quickly, and so the price went down. But it seems like gold is saying, hey, nobody wants gold anymore. So you see, it's manipulated. And so then the price goes down. Then these big holders of gold rush back in, well, maybe not rush, but a little bit at a time. They rebuy back their supplies at the lower price. And they come out at the other end, oftentimes actually making money on the deal. And the average public doesn't know what hit them. So when we hear gold speaking, we have to be careful to know whether it's gold speaking or whether it's the cartel speaking in the name of gold. However, now back to this, I think gold is speaking at the current time. I think that for some reason, and you've touched on it by this question, is I think that the powers that be are willing to pretend for a while that they really like gold to back the money system. And I suspect it's to condition our thinking that they're good guys, and therefore we should trust them. Whatever they do, they're speaking the right thing. They're saying gold is good, and we know that's true. And so maybe we should finally trust them after all. Maybe they learned their lesson, this kind of thing. Those things happen all the time. I don't pretend to know what's going on, but I think, to answer your question specifically, gold is telling us that it's not dead. It's telling us that those who want to put their real wealth, if they have any left after this Game of Thrones that is being played with us here in the economy, the place to put it is in bullion and not in national currencies. That's what I think.
So when it comes to silver, then, I mean, we're seeing silver kind of react at a fraction of gold's move. And we've seen, the silver get taken away from, the monetary component of money. I guess it's even further removed from the currency than we've ever seen it before. And I'm just wondering, because, I mean, we're seeing a gold to silver ratio of over 90 right now. And that's pretty high, in relation to how cheap silver is or how expensive gold is, depending on how you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. So what are your thoughts on silver in this environment with it lagging gold so much? Is silver losing its monetary component, in your opinion?
Let me think about that for a moment. Silver could be losing its monetary component, but it's only in the eyes of the beholder or the investor or the saver, depending on who how you want to classify those people who are buying and holding gold. I think that silver is probably one of the most manipulated and artificially controlled markets you could possibly imagine. I have to say right up front here that I have not been following the charts, the production and consumption charts of silver lately, but the last time I looked at it, it was pretty out of whack, as you said, and it sounds like it's continuing to do that, in that the inventories of silver seem to be dropping. Normally when inventories drop and the demand for silver does not drop, that and silver is still being consumed as industrial metal, in addition to monetary metal. In fact, it's not really much a monetary metal at all because most people don't think of it that way. But when that happens, you expect production to increase. If the inventory goes down and the demand is remaining high or going higher, that should produce a higher price in silver. Back to the laws of supply and demand. The fact that it doesn't do that is a big red flag that something is wrong with the market. It probably means that someone is artificially controlling or manipulating the price of silver for whatever reason. I'm not sure. I could speculate on that, but there is a reason for somebody to do that, or they wouldn't do it. And I think one of the reasons might be, whether it's gold or silver, but this would apply equally to both, is that if the people who are benefiting from this inflationary cycle and inflation and this low cost of money, being able to create money out of nothing, and that means the governments and the banks, and that means everybody of authority and power in the field, if they don't want to have their game upset, then they don't want gold or silver to seek its normal price, because that is a very easy way for the average person to measure the value of national currencies. When they say that the price of gold or silver went up today, what that really means is the price of the dollar went down. That's really what that means. It means in that supply and demand ratio, there's more of a demand for gold or silver as a storehouse of value in the free market and purchasing power, savings, and all that field. It's the value of your wealth that you put into this asset. That means that goes up. That means that the other asset, which most people consider as the primary asset, meaning in our world dollars or some other national currency, that went down. And we think that, oh my gosh, the price of gold or silver went up. Isn't that wonderful? And we don't look at the other side of the equation, that no, it's just that the dollar doesn't buy as much anymore, but the gold or silver continues to buy the same amount, and it's the other side that's dropping. It's an important concept, I think, because we get blindsided by this focus on what's happening to the price of gold or silver, as though that really was important. Well, it is important, but not in terms of gold or silver. It's important in terms of the purchasing power of national currencies. Quite often you hear a news report say, well, the dollar gained in value today. Well, the dollar gained in value? Oh, what does that mean? Well, that means that in comparison to other national currencies, in relationship to the yen or the Deutschmark, for example, and they're always measured against each other. Well, if it looks like the dollar gained in value over the Deutschmark or the yen or all the others, oh, isn't that wonderful? It looks like the dollar is really gaining strength. What they don't realize or don't say is that all of the currencies are falling. It's just that some are falling faster than others. And so the relative relationship between the two makes it look like one is rising, but it's not. It's just that it's not falling as fast as the other. So when the dollar gains in value in comparison to the yen or something, it merely means that the dollar didn't fall as far as the yen did today. They're both falling. Purchasing power of both of them is falling. They're both in that inflationary cycle. And what it really means then is that if the news also said, oh, by the way, the price of gold and silver went up by comparison to even the dollar, well, then even an average person who doesn't understand this concept of a cartel or the free market, they can say, I think I should take some of my savings out of my savings account, which is in terms of dollars, and buy some gold and silver with it. They don't want that. They just don't want that because they want that money into the banking system, in deposit, into the savings and depository stores of the banks and the saving institutions, so they can lend it out at interest. You see, that's the inventory question again. They got to have the money in the banking system, which is one of the reasons, by the way, that they're trying to get rid of money entirely in terms of currency. They just want it all digital so that you can't get it out. You can't put it in your mattress. You can't put it in a coffee can. You can't buy, you just can't do it. They want to keep your savings in the banking system. So back to the main issue. The idea that silver might be suppressed in the market. Maybe every time somebody tries to buy silver, maybe even though the inventory is dwindling, the people that hold it are willing to sacrifice and dump more of it in to not only meet the demand, the buying demand, the current buying demand, but to overmeet it. So it forces the price down again. They're playing, it's like the game of chicken, because as the inventory gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and someday it's going to reach the point where inventory becomes equal to demand, industrial demand, and it can't go any lower. At that point, and I think we've been very close to it for a long time, this is where we need to look at the numbers, but I know it's close. Maybe we're already there. When that point comes, there's no room anymore except by government decree to fix the price of silver, as they, as FDR did, fix the price of gold back in the, I guess it was the 30s. They just fixed it at $35 an ounce. That's what the price is going to be. And if you charge some other price for it, you go to jail. That's the only door left open when you're playing that kind of a game.
So one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, and maybe as we close out this interview here, is you've obviously done a tremendous amount of research, and you studied economics, you studied health, you've written a book on cancer, and I just want to kind of dive a little bit into, or just get a sneak peek of the life of G Edward Griffin, the day. How does your day look? What do you do? Do you wake up at a certain time? What do you do to ensure that your day is most productive, efficient, healthy? And, if you would give us a little glimpse of that, I think we'd all be very grateful.
Well, thank you for that question. Let's see, I have to be careful with this one because I might reveal myself, but I'll tell you the truth. I don't think about what to do or how to do. If one of my many weaknesses is that I don't really have a master plan. I should, I know, and I sometimes create them, but I quickly abandon them. So I'm flying by the seat of my pants most of the time on a day-to-day basis. I just came back from a session and ran a little bit long this time, where I was busier than a cat on a hot tin roof. We had this big event in Hartford, Connecticut on June 7th through 9 called the Red Pill Expo. That took a lot of planning on my part and others on our team, and it was all consuming. We finished the expo. I took a few days off, visited my son and his family in Missouri for a few days, came home, repacked. My wife and I got back on the plane, went to Bali. There was a big event there, meeting some very important people internationally involved in the truth movement and the freedom movement. Made a lot of wonderful contacts. Been running for a month. Now we're just finally back and kind of unwinding. And as a matter of fact, when that mode hits, things start dropping off. And I almost missed this interview today, as you probably know. And that would have been a catastrophe. But that's a sign of what happens when it's kind of let off and come down. Your question about what do I do every day is just, like, if I remember to look at my calendar for appointments, those are the first things I do. And then I start to think, okay, the most important thing to do now is to build up Red Pill University and get a better student base there, so we can generate more cash flow coming through to help fund our teachers, our faculty members, which means primarily a lot of those great journalists and commentators who are being squeezed off of Google and off of YouTube. They're being defunded and blocked and so forth. They have no place to go. We're trying to build a platform for those, plus a lot of new people also that haven't been in that mode before. And we call that Red Pill University. So we're working on that. So I might say, okay, what's the most important thing for Red Pill University today? So I start on that, and then I look at an email, and then the phone rings, and then something else happens. First thing you know, I'm working on something entirely different. But now, I think that you asked me the question because you were hoping I would say something inspiring and instructing your listeners to some
You are
model to
inspiring.
follow.
Don't feel like it needs to come from some sort of very, very articulate angle. But I mean, I just can tell you put a lot of work in, and it's a lot of small steps, right?
It's a lot of small stuff, exactly. And sometimes you feel that the pieces could have been better organized or sequenced, but at the end of the day or end of the month of the year, it seems to work out pretty well if you just keep at it and let your subconscious mind work. I think sometimes the subconscious mind does a better job than the best planning notebooks and systems you can make or buy, because I know deep in my mind there are certain things that just cannot wait. And then often what will happen is the most important issue of the day is a very tough one. It's one that you don't know how to deal with it. And you get your paper out and you say, okay, step one, ... What is step one? Whoa, what am I going to do? Sometimes it helps me to write down in English, what is my obstacle? What is my goal? And writing those things out temporarily helps me to think it through. So, but if there seems to be no answer to these things, it goes into your subconscious mind and you can't take action on it. But it's there. And sometimes 3 or 4 days or maybe 2 or 3 or 4 weeks later, all of a sudden there's the solution. And I guess it comes from because the subconscious mind working on it all the time.
Sir, I think that's a beautiful thing. And one thing that I was reminded of while you were speaking there is I heard Tony Robbins say most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but then underestimate what they can do over the course of a decade. And it really does come down to just the little things, staying at it and not giving up and continuing to move forward. So, I mean, that's a huge aspect to what we do here at Crush the Street. We're looking for ways to enhance our lives, better our lives, and understand the truth in the process. So your contribution today, your time with us here was invaluable, and it's greatly appreciated. If people want to learn more about what you're doing, and if they can, reach out to you in some way or your team, where can they go and what can they expect to find?
Well, I think the best place to go, Kenneth, and thank you for asking that question. We have many websites. We have a commercial website where we sell books and recordings, educational information. That's called realityzone.com, realityzone.com. We've got a lot of great stuff there. And so that's, for the student that wants to learn more, that's a good place to start. When it comes time to doing something about these problems that we're talking about, and I hope many people will want to take that step after they said, okay, I got the information, I got the picture, I know I've got a lot more to learn, but I understand we better do something fast if we want to have a future. Those are the people I'm really interested in. I invite you and others in that category in action mode to start at redpilluniversity.org. That's where people come together, all of like mind. They get into the information path of the university, which is where I'm talking about having these faculty members and so forth. Right now, we're building our archives, which as a starter has over 100 hours of really fantastic programming from the last 3 Red Pill Expos that we've had. Those are online. Any student can view them. And we're adding new material all the time. And our next stage is to build campuses at all the county levels around the United States, and in similar geographical divisions in other countries as well, because we need boots on the ground. We need to affect social and political action at the local community, which is a step that most movements never think about doing. Our opponents do that all the time. But freedom-loving people think, oh, we'll just, if we read another book, somehow that'll take care of it. You know, you've got to get boots on the ground. You've got to become active at the local level, start influencing politics at the local level, and then you can move up. You can't start at the top and move down. You have to start at the bottom and move up. So the people that want to become part of the solution, I urge them to come to redpilluniversity.org and sign up as a student, and that'll put you in the path of all of the information and plans and strategies that we have coming down the pike.
G Edward Griffin, everyone. What a treat for us all today. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sir. And I hope to be able to have a follow-up conversation with you in the next 2 to 3 months to really see kind of how things are playing out, especially with gold. I mean, we could see gold at, who knows, $1,500 to $2,000 here in short order. I think it's very possible. So it'd be a great update. So thanks again for coming on the show.
Kenneth, thank you for inviting me. Goodbye.